Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conscious Business Connections. My name is Bob Caporale from the New York City chapter of Conscious Capitalism, and I'm joined today by Dr. Moshe Ovadia of the Ovadia Corporation, located in Little Falls, New Jersey. Moshe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob. Good to be here.
It's great. Did I do okay with your name?
Yeah, you did great.
Okay, good.
99 percentile.
Okay, excellent. That was my most nervous part. But so Moshe, as you know, conscious capitalism is about embracing the philosophy where businesses can help elevate humanity through the adoption of conscious business practices. And a lot of people get confused by that. They say, "Oh, what does this exactly mean?" But it's really as simple as that. So that's what we want to talk about a little bit today. The show, of course, is about featuring companies like yours who are practicing some of these things, so that you can be an example for other people who want to adopt these same principles in their organizations. So that said, tell us a little bit about Ovadia Corporation and what you guys do and what your position there is.
Yeah, absolutely. Ovadia Corporation is based in Little Falls, New Jersey. We're 15 miles west of Midtown Manhattan. And for 38 years, we've been manufacturing packaging for jewelry. So the company was founded by my two parents, and we make different parts for displaying jewelry in various ways. We also have over 30 patents. We've innovated a lot in that space. And then with the advent of COVID-19, I took the initiative to help build out an effort to produce PPE, personal protective equipment, to serve our frontline workers within the company.
That is so cool. So let's get into the business a little bit. When we talk about packaging for jewelry, I imagine people will have all different views of what that might be. Are these like the boxes and things that you put jewelry in, or something different? Am I picturing the right stuff?
So you go a level before that. So when you're at
Okay.
a jewelry store and you're picking out the jewelry, it's the things in the showcase that the jewelry sits within.
Oh, got it. Okay, okay. I don't spend a lot of time in jewelry stores, thankfully, because I
Yeah.
haven't been required to yet by my wife. Although if she sees this, I'm sure she will. But so this is when you go there, they have the displays and the rings and things are in these different types of displays. That's the kind of
Yeah.
thing you're talking about.
And so the patents we have are in and also to expand beyond that, actually, we do a lot of work with manufacturers of jewelry who have traveling salesmen and saleswomen
Oh,
who carry the jewelry around. So they have a lot of functional, more engineering related needs, as well as aesthetic needs, as well as really weird shaped jewelry that they need to be able to transport in various ways. So a lot of our patents are in the design, the stacking mechanisms, and the holding mechanisms to hold jewelry really securely in smart and beautiful ways, and all the right angles to make it gorgeous.
that is so incredible. And what do you do there? This is a family business. So talk about your role a little bit.
Yeah, it's a family business, and I've just been kind of I would say I grew up in the business from when I was a kid, so I've been doing everything. I've done sales. My dad snuck me into trade shows when I was a teenager. I've done product design and worked in engineering software. And to be honest, like for the past decade or so, I've been less involved in the business. I went off to California. I got a PhD. I worked in consulting. I worked in finance in New York most recently. And then I've been helping from the side to advise the company with strategy and cultural questions and some strategic issues that they were facing. But
Yep.
I've never felt the need to embed myself full time. And
Got it.
then come March, like many people, I became more available for my finance job in New York in March.
Right.
Um, and I was going to use the time to kind of reflect and reassess. But I was sitting around with my mom watching television, and we're hearing Governor Cuomo talk about the shortage of personal protective equipment and these frontline workers talking about what's going on. And my mom turned to me and said, "We must be able to do something about that, right?" And I was like, "I think so." And at first she was like, "Let's make masks." I'm like, FDA complexity. We don't have the machinery. I'm like, hey, there's this other thing that doctors really need, and called face shields. I think we can make that. Let's go talk to our engineer tomorrow. And then next thing I know is, running this effort in partnership with my mom. My dad had passed away a number of years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's an amazing story, though. It's not like that there was a conscious, let's say, need to shift from a profitability standpoint. It doesn't sound. It sounds like she just wanted to do something, right? Like do something
Oh yeah.
positive.
she was just like, can we help these people? And I was like, I was planning to go on vacation. I was like, oh
That's not going to
no,
help.
oh no, I think we can do this. I'm like, I'll give
Yeah.
it a week or two and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then here we
Wow.
are, months into it. And lo and behold, it's like, it's a big effort. But what's been really amazing is like the way so many people in our company have stepped up and so many people in my network have stepped up to try to help in various ways. Cause like developing a new product, finding the parts, the supply chains, understanding FDA regulations, how you're going to fund it, who you're going to give it to, et cetera, is like no easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And I found that like, it was literally a Facebook post that I put out there that said, hey, I'm thinking about doing some PPE thing. Anyone have any ideas? And I got dozens of responses and got connected to people all over the country and open source design groups, and a former colleague of mine from consulting who was making face shields um, in the Pacific Northwest and gave me all of his materials and specs.
Unbelievable.
We called our congresswoman's office and she was like, how can we be helpful?
Wow.
We'd never spoken to our congresswoman, and turned out
Yeah.
she was really helpful and really cared. And so I felt
Yeah.
like, okay, like it's not just me and my mom, like our employees are in it, but like the world was supporting this. And that
Yeah.
really is what kept us going, and also really
It's
helped us move fast.
it's really so cool. Now I have to backtrack just a little bit because I want to understand the connection between what you do and the PPE as well. But before I get there, this sounds like completely opposite of the kind of things that you were working in. What is your PhD in? Is it in something related to this, or is it something outside of this?
My PhD is in organizational behavior, organizational sociology. And
Oh,
my
wow.
dissertation is entitled Humanizing Markets. And I looked at like how communities emerged in the sharing economy, and I could write another PhD about how communities disappeared with the scaling of the
Right,
sharing
right.
economy. But I was doing work with Airbnb on trust in the early days, and with a number of other smaller, really mission-driven startups. So the thesis of my dissertation is that actually like markets and business, and the part of ourselves and that are like had that self-interested programming, and communities and relationships and family, those part of ourselves that are very human oriented, are not irreconcilable. They're actually ways in which they're woven together,
Yeah.
and those synergies actually create better businesses and give purpose to communities. And so that was what my dissertation was about. And I actually dedicated to my parents, who taught me what it was like to have a humanized business dedicated to relationships, my whole life growing up with them. So making PPE is not related to my dissertation, but I think I can't help but draw upon that experience and that mindset when I'm thinking about how we make the PPE, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
and the idea that you are making PPE, right? I mean, clearly, this idea of humanizing, whether it's to your customers, to your employees, I mean, this whole idea about humanizing
Mm-hmm.
with your stakeholders is a key tenet of conscious capitalism. So it's really cool. So mom knew what she was doing. She came to the right person, right? Um, so tell me a little bit also about this bridge between jewelry packaging and face shields. Are you manufacturing it using the same type of equipment, or is it assembly? Like, how is it something that's at least in the core competency of the business, or this is totally outside of anything you guys ever did?
We've tinkered in other industries. It's just like having an inventor like blood. We've
Yeah.
tinkered in other industries, but we've really our core product has been in jewelry packaging. We were able to figure out how to our core competence maybe is like taking a problem, breaking it down, and rebuilding and redesigning it,
Hmm.
to come up with a new, better solution. So step
Interesting.
one with the facial was being like, hey, actually, we may not have to redesign this whole thing. Let's come up with a version 1 in a week that is just like as good, a little bit better, but similar to what's already out there.
Yep.
And we're able to do that pretty quickly. But like there are a lot of things we had to learn and figure out. But we have the machinery, and we had like smart, capable people who could do that. The interesting piece came along when we said, like, how can we make this better? We talked to a number of doctors and nurses about that, and came up with a different model of face shield than exists there currently. And
Oh,
I'm happy to talk more about that if that's interesting. But there's
yeah,
a
for
whole,
sure, for sure.
and I can actually show you a little example of it. But the way the other thing we thought about was like, hey, if we're thinking out like addressing the PPE shortage, yes, we can make more face shields, but they're disposable and people are reusing them even though they're off label, even though they're not designed to be reused. And in
Yeah.
fact, they're not super comfortable. there's like elastic and it squeezes your head and everything. And so we said like, so we came up with a model that is more comfortable, is safer, and more durable, and is designed for reuse and decontamination. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
in that case, like it's something that like our frontline medical workers, we can even imagine like essential workers who are getting exposed to a lot of people, MTA workers, et cetera, who may not want to go through multiple face shields a day, can take it, clean it. There's multiple ways to clean it quite easily, and then wear it again the next day and be protected. So this is our durable model.
Oh, wow.
And so it has a number of features where it's resting on the head rather than putting pressure against the head. We designed like a comfort bar out of a material that's not foam like some of the face shields use, but actually out of a benign plastic that's really easy to clean and sterilize. And we use polycarbonate, which is a very strong, sturdy material that's safer and lasts over time. So we made a number of innovations, and that was like our mindset, plus getting a lot of feedback from medical workers on the front lines.
You know what's so cool, and I have to tell you, I did not expect this. You're the second person I talked to that actually transitioned into face shields, right?
Okay.
I almost feel like, am I doing? Is it okay to show both? Yeah, why not, right? I mean, but two different types of designs, two different types of pivoting, but the same type of thing where you're actually improving on the product, you're actually asking doctors what they need, and you're actually helping in supply and need that's in desperate, demand right now. So really, really incredible type of story. Now, before you pivot to the face masks, do you feel like your company, you mentioned that your parents, kind of taught you some of these principles of humanity and so forth
Yeah.
growing up. I mean, how would you have described your business before COVID-19 and before having to pivot? Would you say that you were adopting conscious business practices even before any of this?
I think there were some things we were doing and some things had not occurred to us to
Yeah.
do. So I think we call ourselves a family business. Not everyone has the same last name as I do, but we
Right.
operate as a family, right? Like people have been there for decades. We care about each other. We celebrate occasions together. So there's a lot of like love and humanity in the business, and also our relationship with customers. Like those are deep relationships, and our mom and my mom, my other salesperson, like really have stewarded over time.
Yeah.
And so when someone, and I think even like our current people working with on the COVID side, like when working with medical centers, they feel the love and they feel that care. Um, that's the legacy of who we are and how we operate with anyone. Um, but I think the crisis has really prompted us to maybe rethink some things as well and show up a bit differently.
Tell me a little bit about that. How so?
So one is like, I think we were very comfortable where we were, like kind of chugging along. And with all the change came the needs for like greater transparency, right? So
Yeah.
initially, we had to furlough a number of employees, right? Because like our sales just vaporized overnight. And this is
Because
our
of
busy
COVID.
season.
Yeah,
And so like
got it.
having very open conversations with them about that, discussing their fears, discussing our fears, and just being really transparent, like not knowing what the future was, but what we're doing. So I think that like open dialogue, which I think we probably could have had more of in the past, but didn't need to,
Yeah.
has arisen today. Um, I think also like we've been thinking a lot about also like safety and well-being at a different level as well, right? You really have to think about like what will keep our employees safe. The government's not giving a lot of regulations around that. And we're also in conversations trying to get like partnership around like, hey, here's how we think, here's some safety guidelines. What do you think? And then it's like, so everything's become much more collaborative. And I guess the last thing is like, I feel like there's really a mission now that we can tie to. Like, that's like, hey, we're helping these people. We're bringing our people down for the deliveries. We're telling them stories, what's happening in the field. One of our donations, we got a number of t-shirts and we gave them to our staff to wear home, right?
Oh,
Like,
that's cool.
because they're the people who built the face shield. So it really is like, we have a mission and you're part of it. So everyone's just like alive and energized in a new way.
That is so cool. And I imagine they're pretty darn happy that you've been able to pivot into this other business because it's keeping them employed as well, right? And they must feel like they're doing some pretty great things, but also making a paycheck, which is good.
Yeah, they feel really proud. Though I will say honestly, the unemployment benefits now are such that like you actually get paid more not to work if you're a below a certain salary threshold with the.
Yeah.
And so it's a really it's interesting and it's hard because I think the mission here matters more, the intrinsic motivation, because if you're not like a white collar worker with six figures, the government like is taking care of those who are unemployed, which means, hey, if you're being called back to work and you were furloughed, like the mission, I mean, at least the intrinsic motivation, the mission, you're making an impact, the way we operate together, like somehow probably matters a bit more.
Well, that's a very interesting question because that there's been a lot of talk about that, right? Obviously, like the government basically took a midpoint, and if you're below that midpoint, you could do better on unemployment than off unemployment. But have you found that your employees are opting to come off unemployment and work for you because of what you guys are doing, or do you find that they're saying, "Well, look, I'm going to go where the money is"?
Well, like this is complicated, right? Because
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
also like if you're called back to work, you're legally required to go back to work.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I guess I wasn't completely aware of that. Yeah,
yeah, um, that's always been true for unemployment, right?
yeah.
But I think what we're trying to really do is remain in. I think a lot of people are proud and happy to come back to work um, at this time, and then there are some people we call and they say they're sick and they're not well, and we're remaining like honest conversation with them about them and their health too, right?
Yeah.
And so you just kind of have to um, you have to just stay in dialogue with those people who say they're not in a position to return to work, and also, but if some people come back and some people don't, the people who came back may not feel great knowing that a number of other people didn't. So there's a lot
Mm.
of like nuance around communication there.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but ultimately, like, they've been with us for, these people have been with us for a long time, like
yeah,
every one of them. And they are proud. And I think they really trust my mom, who's been running the ship
yep,
all this time. And there's like a deep sense of like, we've been in this together for a long time and we want to stay in this.
yeah.
And
Well,
and I think that really makes a really huge difference.
I think this is an incredible conversation because a lot of companies, I think, will struggle with this, right? When we talk about stakeholder engagement and keeping your employees engaged and happy and so forth, there are always going to be situations where employees are going to say, well, we don't believe in this, or we don't. So if you were giving advice to another company that was in this situation, how do you manage the communication around that to make sure that everybody feels engaged and feels like you're taking care of them? What kinds of maybe more tactical things might you recommend that companies can do?
Absolutely. I think it's really important to have regular, like, socially distant meetings where you're speaking really loudly
Right.
and tell people what's going on and what's operating, and let them know the situation.
Yep.
Um, so we've also been working for some messages. We're also having cascade down because it's really hard to get all of our people in one room. So we may tell a couple people and have them cascade out the message. But I
Yep.
think like communicating, that's really important. I think having like a clear protocol for um, sterilization, disinfecting things, and also staying in conversation about them. Like, do you feel safe? Does this feel adequate?
Right.
Um, is really important. And like taking the time to do some of the research um, to really understand like the science behind things as well. In the state of New Jersey, there's a New Jersey Manufacturers Association, NJMEP. That's been helpful because they put together like a coming back to work guide. And so we got to take that. It's like this thick
Yeah.
and say like, no, here's like the 2 pages that are relevant in our case, given the size and scale of what we have. Right.
Right.
And like also create a forum for them to voice their fears. And then in our
Awesome.
case, like, I think glimmers of hope or positive reinforcement are also really important to share back as a feedback loop.
That's awesome. Really, really great advice. That's what I think really people need, right? Is because these are hard and difficult conversations to have, and I think it's just so important to have some real tactical approaches. Like how do you deal with this? So now we hopefully come out of this COVID crisis at some point. How does what you went through now change your business? What kinds of things do you say now? We're gonna keep doing this because we learned some things during this time. What kinds of things do you do after this?
Yeah, so I think there's answers at multiple levels. One is like I think we really realized how vulnerable like the jewelry business is,
Yeah.
and I don't know how quickly it's going to come back.
Mm.
And then the jewelry business bounces back, retail jewelry, right, not online sales, and then. So that's a question. But at the same time, I think we finally really stepped into, hey, we have a lot of other core competencies,
Right.
and like, how can we innovate around those core competencies and abstract from, we make this product in this industry till we have these core capabilities, and here's the other sectors we can use them in. And what's been really cool is like empowering our engineering team and around that conversation,
Yeah.
and creating this space. It was it was like never like there was like a silence around it, but the question never was asked, right?
Right.
And so I realized like we have really good people who can help us think through that, and that kind of broadens the scope of what we could do. And then I think there's kind of the way we operate and our way of being. And I think like trying to stay in dialogue and in conversation internally is really important. So everything I shared, like, I mean, safety issues and safety concerns like will persist
Yep.
for people until we have a vaccine and everyone is vaccinated, um, particularly in the greater New York area. Um, I think like trying to have a product with a mission or a purpose. My mom used to say our displays save lives, and there was a story we could tell around that because you could put them in, they reduced the space to carry them in a suitcase, and you're less likely to get mugged in New York in the 80s. If you had a smaller suitcase, it was
Oh,
less
that's
obviously
interesting.
jewelry, but like, it was a little bit of a stretch, but like the idea of also maybe, as we think about innovating, expanding, I'd love to be in an industry, and we love that has that a little bit more of that double or triple bottom line, right? That social impact piece. We have the health impact and environmental impact too from a durable face shield, and that feels really good. And
Yeah.
the last thing I think that really is sticking with us is the need to gauge like that broader set of stakeholders, like our mayor's office, our congresswoman, the Manufacturers Association, New Jersey, like peers in this space, like to stay in dialogue and conversation and realize like that we're not operating alone, and there's a web of people who care about us and who we care about, um, and can support each other in other times as well.
It's such great messages. And I think one thing that really resonates with me that I think is really important for people to understand is that, you said jewelry displays don't generally save lives. I mean, they do to some extent, but most people wouldn't say, oh, jewelry displays are saving lives. But not every conscious business has to make products that are directly saving lives, right? Elevating humanity is about also making people's lives happier and better and so forth. You don't have to be making wind turbines to be a conscious company. It's about the way you treat your customers, your company, your employees, and how the products that you make are paying attention to things like, can there be a safer way? Is there a more sustainable way to do things? So I think it's really important. And the fact that you are coming out of this time with some new messages and maybe some new cultural thinking is, I think, really, really important.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think my mom prides herself on her integrity, right? And like we've had financial struggles, right? A manufacturer in the US with a lot of competition from Asia, et cetera. So like there's been ups and downs. It's a cutthroat industry in many ways, but like the integrity, the honesty we try to use like in relationship to customers, suppliers in the
Right.
2008 recession, 2008, and the suppliers now, right? Like how do you uphold those standards of integrity and how I operate with anyone and everyone? Um, like it's put to the test at times like this, but like that DNA, that fabric is woven like throughout your life cycle as an organization. And
That's
so we
it.
we get to draw on those resources and now like just deepen them and expand them. And I give my mom a ton of credit because of that's just the person she is and tried to raise us to be.
That's so awesome, and it comes through. I can tell you. And look, it's not like you're making the shields for free, right? You're making money off, in that there's profit. So,
Yeah.
when you do the right things, the world rewards you, and I think that's the important message. So, Moshe, we're wrapping up on time here, but I want to make sure that we have give people an opportunity to know where they can learn more about your company. Where could they find out more?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a new website for the PPE initiative in particular. It's ovadiacorporation.com.
Okay.
O V as in Victor, A D as in David, IA Corporation. They can also contact us at ovadia.ppe@gmail.com.
Awesome. That's awesome. And we'll put those links into the description as well so people can find that. So awesome. Again, really, really thank you so much. I think it's just been such a great conversation. So I know people are going to learn a lot from this and wish you the best of luck during this and well after it as well. So it's really just terrific.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for everything you're doing to get the message out there. And also, I think it's a great question. Like, how can we make the lessons we learn really stick and be part of a shift into and more conscious way of operating as businesses and as humans. So I love that you're catalyzing that thinking in me and in our society, in our community more broadly. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's my pleasure. Whatever little bit I could do. I wish I could make face masks, but I absolutely can't. So, well, maybe that's not true. I don't know how to at the moment. But anyway, I don't need to because you're
I'll send
doing
you
it.
some
So that's
open
awesome.
source specs and get you started.
Oh,
If
that's
you feel
great.
so
That's
inclined. Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, to everyone out there, thank you again for joining. And I don't want to let the show end without also thanking the sponsors of the New York City chapter of Conscious Capitalism. So the Core Club, the Tomac Foundation, these are sponsors of our chapter, and their generosity allows programs like this to happen. So thank you to them. And thank you to you for joining us. We hope you like the show. We hope you can learn something from the show and apply it in your own business. If you do like the show, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, and also subscribe, spread the word, tell your friends, but most importantly, hopefully you can apply this in your business and get something out of it. And with all that said, we'll see you back here on another episode of Conscious Business Connections. Thanks again for joining.